Welcome to Near Mint Condition, the home of collected editions. I am the Uncanny Omar, and join me today for an advanced look at the Annihilation Omnibus reprint from Marvel Comics. This is the one that started it all, and I'll explain what that means in a second. Before going any further, I want to give a huge shout out to David Gabriel and the fine folks at Marvel for sending us an advanced copy of this omnibus. This omnibus is due out in the direct market and book market on May 3rd or 4th, depending on where you get your comics. And what we're looking at here is the latest printing of Annihilation. And I do have a history with this book. It's one of my favorite events that happen at Marvel Comics. But also this takes me back to the very first phone call I had with David Gabriel about reprinting books. And to get to announce this and Daredevil by Brian Michael Bendis and then Peter David's Hulk Volume 1, that brings it all home. And the fact that people were like, who is this guy on YouTube? Is he speaking for Marvel? I don't believe this until it comes out. And true, right? Why would you believe a madman that is making videos out of his basement talking about Marvel comics that are coming? Oh man, how times have changed. Now I have to put on a suit and a tie. Back then, I could just wear a t-shirt, be chilled. It's all worth it, though. Let's look a little bit at it here. I do have the first printing to compare it to. This being the latest printing is also the first time that they've given us a direct market cover. So that's what we're looking at here, the direct market cover. On the left-hand side is my original printing. One thing that I noticed right away is how bright and how much more glow there is on the words Annihilation. Not so much on the cover. By the way, the standard edition cover will be this cover again, and I'm pretty sure the spine's going to be the same as the original spines. Speaking of spine is where it really stands out. The big glow around the word Annihilation. The original printing, and again, the standard edition printing will have that image on the spine. And my boy, Rich Rider Nova on the spine of the direct market cover. And I've actually done a comparison when we got the first original new printing. And I think I did that one with Maddie. So yeah, this one, of course, it's special to me. It brings it back home. The original printing here is a little harder to see what it collects in here. Over here, the words are bold, so they stand out. The price, the same that I paid for, $125 for both of them. The T Plus and the Marvel down there, a little bit smaller logos. It looks like they were using bolder words up here, but they stand out just as fine. And it looks like they were using a different font for this right here. Just a quick little recap. Under the dust jacket, this is always important for me. You have that badass image right there. I've always loved that image. And again, I never go back and watch my older videos, so I don't know if the new printing of Annihilation, the first reprint, had this, but I want to say it didn't. I think it was just this. So for this printing, it looks like it's just Annihilation on a black border. And then that awesome image of Drax against Thanos. Love that image. But let's go ahead and crack this new printing open. Talk about the story, look at the artwork in here, and then we'll do some art comparison in the way that the book's open. Alright, let's get this started. Right away, I've read my first printing so many times, I can tell you the end pages are different. Mine are black, and the new printing is blue, sky blue. Here's another image of some of the characters. Annihilation, love it. And what it collects in here, and who the creators are behind each of these miniseries. There's this whole misconception too. I don't know. I may have talked about this when I talked about the reprint. I've talked about this book so often I can't remember what I've shared. But the whole misconception is that this is what starts the DNA era, and of course it does. DNA did have something to do with this, but what people tend to forget is that DNA, Dan Abnett, Andy Lanning only wrote the Nova issues of this. This is really Keith Giffen's baby. This is where he came back to Marvel and started writing these stories, where he got to expand a little bit more on his Thanos story. And yeah, because we call it, and rightly so, the beginning of the DNA era of the Cosmic Saga. But like the miniseries Drax here was not originally part of Annihilation, but I'm glad it's included in here because it shows you how Drax went from the, if you stepped away from comics for a long time, it shows how Drax is, the purple cape wearing character and how he transforms into this badass warrior with knives that you see in the movie. That's right, James Gunn was a big fan of this era of the cosmic saga, and therefore that's why we got Guardians of the Galaxy the way we did. So this does collect the Drax the Destroyer miniseries. All 4 issues are included in here. The Annihilation Prologue, which is really the Annihilation one-shot is what I call it. Nova, so then it became Annihilation Nova, the 4-issue miniseries. Annihilation Silver Surfer, 4-issue miniseries. Super Skrull, and Ronin. Both of those are also 4-issue miniseries. And then we got the Annihilation event. All 6 issues collected in here. As well as the Heralds of Galactus. Not Herald of Galactus. It's plural. The 2-issue series. And then the Nova Corp files. Which is where that cover came from here. For the direct market. The book has 880 pages. But let's get to this. The book that kicked it all off. I was so just... I did not believe in this. And I'll tell you why. So, one of the editors that came over from DC took this idea that they did at DC, which is the Infinite Crisis idea, which is a great idea. You start off with a one-shot, which was Countdown over there. You kick it off into multiple miniseries like Day of Judgment, or the OMAC Project, and then you come back to the main event, Infinite Crisis. The same formula they used here. And I was like, that's a DC thing. That's not going to work for Marvel. And nobody's cared about cosmic characters. But I was reading this monthly, and this issue right here where the entire Nova Corps is destroyed by this thing called the Annihilation Wave. Holy crap. Like, Richard Rider was one of my favorite characters during the pages of the New Warriors. And because of that, I went back and read a lot of the older stuff. I say older stuff, but the stuff from the 70s, like the Human Rocket, or the Kid Called Nova. But in this, it was like he was part of this big court up there, and it all got destroyed. All his friends got killed, and he is the last remaining member of the Nova Corps. So he has the world mind with him, everything that he needs, which is the knowledge, pretty much like a knowledge base of Nova Corps. Everything is absorbed into his helmet. And to be out there on his own, oh my gosh. And that one shot kicks off into the 4 miniseries. That one shot kicks off into the Silver Surfer, Nova, Ronin, and the Super Skrull. And each one of them starts leading into the event. You see how this Annihilation Wave that's set up. I mean, you see a lot of the key players in the one shot in here, including Thanos, who is always scheming. Death looks a little bit different nowadays, but that's all told through the pages of the Thanos book. That if you ever watch my Most Wanted Omnis, I mapped that one out with that Thanos series, hoping for I wanted a Annihilation Prologue Omnibus, because I think it would make sense to put that in there. But Nova's in here, Drax is in here, the young girl who he beats in the very first Drax miniseries. She plays a role in all this. You're not going to see the Guardians of the Galaxy here. That formation doesn't happen until the pages of Annihilation Conquest. But what you're going to see are these cosmic characters you haven't seen for a while. Nobody has cared about the cosmic universe back then. I love that the guidebooks sometimes, the Nova Corps database files are scattered throughout the book here. Silver Surfer's miniseries is awesome. And again, bringing back a bunch of cosmic characters we hadn't seen for a long time. And like I mentioned a little bit earlier, most of this is Keith Giffen. Here's the Super Skrull story. He has his own team that you care about. So when there's betrayal or death, you're like, oh man, that's so messed up. Why did they do this? They fooled me. I love Praxagora. She's such an awesome character. And all these characters play a big role in what the Annihilation event will be. This is the Ronin series. This one's actually written by Simon Furman. And that name is familiar to me because of Transformers. He was a big writer for Transformers, the UK series, and then he came over to America to write Transformers. To write, like, the final issues. But in there, you're going to see a bunch of characters we hadn't seen for a long time. And then all of that leads to the Annihilation event, told through these 6 issues. Here's some variant covers on the opposite side of the standard edition cover. So this reads, how do I explain this? This is surprising how this was written, because it reads like a real war journal. Like, days have passed, weeks have passed. The entries by Rich Rider, where he's talking about, you know, how many casualties they were, how much destruction the Annihilation Wave has caused across the universe. I thought that was a really unique way of telling the story, because some time has passed since the miniseries started. And now we've seen this character who, you know, to me was always a Kid Nova, and then in New Warriors kind of grew up a little bit. But in this, he was just made into a man. Like, he had to make decisions for the entire universe. Now, while this is happening, on Earth, we're getting Civil War. So 2 big events. But the beauty of it is, you don't need to know what's going on Earth, because nobody here cares. We have this freaking Annihilation Wave that's coming and destroying all these planets, all these beings. Nobody cares about a bunch of superheroes fighting, because... Anyway, that's I'm not even going to get into that Civil War story. Come on, man. How you going to do that to my New Warriors, dude? Anyway, so everybody gets involved in here. If you're even vaguely familiar with some of the cosmic characters, because even just the MCU movies, you're going to recognize a lot of them in here. You know who Galactus is, even if you've never read a page of the Fantastic Four or Silver Surfer. Thanos, I'm pretty sure most people that have watched the MCU movies knows who he is. Dude is always scheming. And in here, you'll find out the relationships he has. You know, who his daughter is, and how it's changed from the MCU, from the actual movies. I love this event. This event is the return of Peter Quill, too. Now, Peter Quill, of course, looks a little bit different. There's Gamora, also looking a little bit different than what you're used to. Keep in mind, these are the stories that the movies are based on. So this is the original content. This is the source material for everything that you enjoyed about those James Gunn movies. They're borrowed from here. Of course, Peter changes a little bit throughout, not just this, but Annihilation Conquest. Now, the 2 Heralds of Galactus, those 2 little one-shots are kept all the way in the back. And then the rest of the Nova Corps files, there's Cammy right there. That's the young girl I was talking about in the pages of Drax, who also ends up in, Avengers Arena. And what was she in that really surprised me to see her in? Was it Death's Head? It was something like, I'm like, what is she doing here? But this is a really cool thing to put in here. Because I think if you're not familiar with these characters, you could just come back here to the back and find out a little bit about them, like how strong they are, and like what powers they have, what kind of threat level they are to the universe. I don't think I've read these, but I haven't read them since they first came out in the one shot. I don't think there's spoilers in here for anything that happens through the main event, but they kind of give you a quick little background on where they've been. For example, if they've been MIA for a long time. Yeah, Korath the Pursuer shows up. Girl Moondragon, Morg, all these characters you may have seen through the different incarnations of Guardians of the Galaxy or different runs of the Silver Surfer. They all make a appearance in here. And this event is the one that, got so many people interested in the cosmic universe again. There's a reason why it sold so well. There's a reason why we had a Nova series and it was successful. And then Guardians of the Galaxy spinning out of Annihilation Conquest. And then the big crossover with the War of the Kings. Because they got the X-Men in space. And if the X-Men are in space, we got to get these 2 people, or these 2 groups of people together. All that coming, like to be there in the middle of it, reading it every month. Oh man, I could not. Nova, Guardians of the Galaxy, that was always at the top of my stack of books when I was buying single issues. Kind of miss those days. So, I'm sorry, in the back here, you have some layouts. This is Kev Walker, big fan of his art. Scott Collins, he did the one-shot. This is the character studies by Andre DeVito for the Super Skrull, Nova, and Silver Surfer, Thanos, Ronan the Accuser. And all these characters will go on to Annihilation Conquest. So some of them will have smaller roles, but some of them the roles get a lot bigger. And by the time you get to the Realm of the Kings with the Thanos Imperative, it just, some of them are like, oh my gosh, I have to read it from the beginning to see how that character got here. This is all of the combining covers right here and the sketches. This is by Gabriel Delotto, who of course supplied the standard edition cover. It's a beautiful piece right there, also by Delotto. And then an afterword by the editor, Andy Schmidt, from the 2007 release. Now, these have been published in original hardcover format, trade paperback, complete collections, and this, like I said, is the third printing of the book. Let's take a look at the binding. Did I say the page count? Pretty sure I did, right? 880 pages? Sure I did. Let's look at the binding. So here is your eye. It is sewn binding. The book was printed at the Donnelly printer, which is exactly the same printer they use for the original printing. So this is the part of the show that I like to compare just a little bit of the artwork. But the very first thing I want to do is just compare the sizes of these. Okay, so here we have both of them. They both look equally just as thick, honestly. We'll keep the new printing on the right-hand side and the original printing on the left. All right, so let's take a closer look at this page, for example. So this book right here on the left-hand side, this was printed in 2014. That is the first printing of Annihilation. This one here on the right was, of course, printed in 2021. I'll be honest, I can't tell the difference in the paper thickness. I see people talk about how thin the paper has gotten, and I've always think it's case by case. And in this case, the thickness of the original omnibus and the thickness of this printing feel identical. I see no difference, or feel no difference rather. I could be wrong. I don't have one of those little paper machines that actually tells me how thick the paper is. Maybe one day. But do I really want to do that? That kind of is ridiculous. I mean, I should be able to look at something and say, hey, this looks thinner than this. Yeah, let me find some pages that have a bunch of white. Okay, I can't find a lot of pages that have a lot of white because, hey, this takes place in space where it's mostly dark. But here are some when Nova, Drax, and Cammy get stranded on this planet. And honestly, I mean, I see as much bleed through coming from the original printing than I do the new printing, which is hardly any. But as far as the way that the book lays over, because of course, the one thing to keep in mind is, yes, they're both sewn binding, but this one, I just opened it up for the sake of the video. Actually, let's do this. So you have the original printing up at the top and the new printing at the bottom, and this is the way that it lays over. The new printing, you know, I've stretched out the spine and I've properly opened it a couple of times. But the original printing has had many read-throughs. Many. So that's why it opens up like that. And the other thing I want to do is also look at the different colors that are in here. Because the original printing, they look a little bit brighter, the colors. While the newer printing, they look a little more vivid. So the colors pop out just a little bit more. I mean, that is a very, very minimal change between both printings. But that, as they say, is that. If you're interested in purchasing this book, don't forget to check out our sponsor, cheapgraphicnovels.com, your online home for graphic novels and collected editions up to 50% off cover price. They have excellent shipping and prompt and helpful service. Check out their bargain deals for up to 90% off cover price. And don't forget, the CGN also takes pre-orders. That way you don't miss out on the hottest releases. And they are currently running a special promotion for you Minties. If you're a first-time customer, after receiving your order confirmation email, reply back to that email and let them know Near Mint Condition sent you their way. They will then apply a free shipping promotional credit to your next order in the US. Cheap Graphic Novels, your source for the hottest books with the kind of deep discount, quality shipping, and customer service that will keep you coming back for more. And that was the content, the page count, and build of this omnibus. Let me know in the comments down below if you've never read it, this is your first time getting this book, if you have the original printing and you wanted to upgrade to this printing. I would love to know all the comments down below and which cover you're going to get if this is your first time buying it. So, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe, ring that bell for notifications, check out our Patreon and Spreadshop, amazing ways to support the channel if you can do so. More importantly, all of you stay healthy and safe out there. Much love.